The United States has the best democracy in the entire world, in my opinion. With such a great country, why are we silencing 5.8 million people? Doesn't everyone have an equal right to be heard? Aren't all men created equal? Disenfranchisement is rooted in Jim Crow laws from the 1880s. These laws are designed to prevent African Americans from voting. Today, 13% of African Americans cannot vote. This represents 36% of the total disenfranchised population in the United States. 4.4 million disenfranchised people are out of prison. This discriminates against active citizens. These are people in our society that pay taxes but don't have the right to vote to talk about where their tax dollars are spent. Disenfranchised population could be the possible tipping point for the upcoming tight presidential election. Supporting our democracy, respecting basic human rights, and reducing racism are 3 points to why disenfranchisement should not be a regular practice in the United States. Everyone in a democracy should vote, and we have several amendments in our Constitution that speak to this. The 15th Amendment says that African Americans can vote regardless of criminal history. The 17th Amendment says that discrimination against sex cannot be made, i.e., women can vote, regardless of criminal history. The 26th Amendment barred poll tax. Poll tax is a tax that was required to be paid, and many minorities, including African Americans, couldn't afford to pay this tax and therefore couldn't vote. The 27th Amendment states that anyone over the age of 18 should have the right to vote, regardless of criminal history. Basic human rights are violated by disenfranchisement because it focuses on African Americans and Latinos. According to the Felon Disenfranchised Report by sociology professors of the University of Minnesota and New York in July 2012, over 7% of the general population in Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi, Virginia, and Tennessee are disenfranchised. Over 1 in 5 African Americans are disenfranchised in Florida, Kentucky, and Virginia. The advocacy group Sentencing Project notes that over 60% of the prison population is African American and Latino. The Democratic Restoration Act is an act that supports post-imprisoned citizens to have the right to vote in federal elections. This has been presented to the House of Representatives and with no hearing at this time. In 2007, Governor Charlie Crist said, like Florida, many southern states struggling through Jim Crow era resisted calls to change their laws denying restoration of civil rights. Considering the current imprisonment speed, 3 out of 10 African American men can expect to lose their right to vote at some point in their life. Nobody wants to support the felon vote for fear of losing the majority Caucasian vote. But if rehabilitation is truly the goal for imprisonment, why would we restrict our citizens from voting once they're out of prison? They've paid for their crimes in other ways. Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "The future of this republic is in the hands of the American voter. I, for one, would like all Americans to be heard." Supporting our democracy, respecting basic human rights, and reducing racism are 3 points to why I believe disenfranchisement should not be a practice in today's society.